Hello and welcome to the Nexus. On today's program, the Chile paradox. The South American country's vaccinated more of its population than most, yet coronavirus cases are soaring. What's going on? We'll have a report from Chile in a minute. Also coming up, the Benin bronzes. They're ancient, very valuable, but is it now time for European collectors to give them back? And finally, we're all going on a summer holiday, or are we? We'll hear from travel expert Simon Calder on who's flying where and when. Well, let's start in Chile. A South American country with a population of around 19 million people has been at the front or near the front of the vaccine race for some time now. 30% of the total population is fully vaccinated, making it #1 in the world after Israel, ahead of much richer nations where vaccines are actually being discovered and manufactured. And compared to its neighbors, its success is even more pronounced. Of course, Chile's been willing to use a wide range of vaccines, including China's Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. And yet, Chile has recently been forced to reintroduce strict lockdown measures as cases soar. It now has the second highest average daily case rate in South America, ahead of Brazil and behind only Argentina. So, what's going on? Let's head over to Chile now. And we have the American journalist Jonathan Franklin with us from Punta de Lobos. He's been living there for around 25 years now. We're also joined by Julian Tang, a consultant virologist at the Leicester Royal Infirmary here in the UK. Now, you may have noticed that Jonathan's photography is a little bit compromised. That's because he's on his mobile phone. He had a blackout during this enormous storm they're suffering at the moment, and, well, he's had to make do. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Nexus. Again, really appreciate it. We're seeing so many new cases in Chile, despite the very successful vaccination program. What's the explanation for that?
Well, Chile has vacations in February, so after months of lockdown, millions of Chileans went on vacation in February. And despite efforts to social distance at the beach and during these vacations, I think throughout March and April, we've seen the effects of all that travel and all those gatherings. And we are seeing some 40% of the new infections are the Brazilian variant. So we're seeing quite a bit of resistance and spreading faster than usual. And we're also seeing people ending up in the ICU after having 2 vaccinations. My daughter is an ICU specialist, and she's saying, "Dad, be careful. I have a lot of patients on the ventilation machines, and they've been vaccinated twice."
Well, that's really interesting. Jonathan, just stay with us for a moment. We'll go over to Julian Tang for a moment. Dr. Tang, we've heard there that Jonathan's daughter is an ICU nurse, and she's noticed that other variants have managed to infect people and do them some considerable damage, even people who have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. Does that concur with what you're noticing?
Yeah, so from what I've seen in Chile, a lot of the vaccinees have been vaccinated with the Chinese vaccine, which is showing about 50% efficacy. And they've also had different variants, including the Kent variant, the Brazilian variant, but also the American variant, which has the L452R mutation, which has been shown to escape from the vaccine, induce protection from Pfizer and Moderna, for example, and also from some monoclonal antibodies. We don't actually test people who've been vaccinated for antibodies. It's not practical and it's probably not economical, and we don't normally do it. But I'm wondering whether if we did do that, a lot of those vaccinees that may have received one of those vaccines, perhaps the Chinese one, which is the least efficacious as such, may not have actually responded with neutralizing antibodies to protect them from infection.
Jonathan, is that the fear then in Chile, that they've been using Sinovac and potentially that's why we've seen so many new cases?
Yeah, there is some concerns. Chile does feel that they're a little bit the guinea pig for Sinovac, in that a lot of the results from Chile are being studied very closely to calculate the efficacy of this. We are seeing people get lockdown fatigue, even though there's full lockdown. There's traffic jams. The parks are getting crowded. Millions of people are abusing a bit the system. So between the doubts about the Sinovac vaccine itself,
right,
the lockdown fatigue, and the vacations, we have a multiple factors. But people here are completely confused. People don't understand why, with all these measures, we still have 95% capacity in the ICU units.
Yeah, in fact, Jonathan, you're living in a type of lockdown at the moment where you're only allowed out of your house on set occasions. You kindly use one of those occasions to take a walk down to the beach and speak to a couple of people there and find out what's troubling them. Let's have a listen to that.
We're here in southern Chile where vaccination is doing extremely well. Millions of people vaccinated, but cases are still surging. Any reason you think that the cases in Chile have not gone down despite millions of vaccinations?
Yeah, I think that the main reason is because although the government has done a very good campaign of vaccination, the other measures, as a lockdown and those kind of stuff, I think that it hasn't been the best ones, right?
How scared are you about the virus?
Tengo miedo y tengo esperanza que la vacuna funcione, aunque somos los países que más vacunación tenemos y no hemos tenido grandes resultados, pero sigo con la esperanza de que en algún momento se revierta en la situación y las vacunas hagan su efecto, pero hasta el momento estoy en un completo confusión porque no sé por qué no ha sucedido lo que tendría que haber sucedido.
So clearly, Jonathan, a little bit of confusion, a little bit of concern there. Tell us, are people in Chile ready to stick with a strict lockdown? And what kind of lockdown, what kind of restrictions are you living with currently?
Right now, about 80% of the country is in very strict lockdown. You can only go out twice a week. They did make one very interesting change that from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. you can do exercise, so you can go out. You don't need permissions, but people are completely going insane here. Really, the mental health issues are really going through the roof. People are not happy with this. There is a low-level rebellion going on against the government on all sorts of fronts. So socially, it's not stable at all, and people are not happy. The government's approval rating is probably in the low teens. There's a lot of upheaval in Chile. It's not nearly as stable as it appears from abroad.
Right. Dr. Tang, here in the UK, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been very careful to point out that the drop in new cases here is actually not down to vaccines, but actually down to the lockdown. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say, and we'll come back to you for that.
It is very, very important for everybody to understand that the reduction in these numbers, in hospitalizations and in deaths and in infections, has not been achieved by the vaccination program. People don't, I think, appreciate that it's the lockdown that has been overwhelmingly important in delivering this improvement.
Well, Dr. Tang, I mean, many of us would have assumed that the drop in new cases was down to the rise in vaccinations. But, I mean, are we not to make that causal relationship then?
Yes, I think that's quite difficult. And I think the Prime Minister is right to be cautious. The lockdown has really suppressed a lot of the contact between people. As you start to open up again, you'll then start to see the vaccine immune barrier effect. But of course, don't forget that we haven't vaccinated the under 18, so the perhaps 12 to 15 million children who are still reservoirs of the virus. And also, as we start to release the restrictions, the under 40s are still not vaccinated. The under 50s have just started. So there's still potentially 20, 30 million people out there who could still get infected and transmit the virus onwards. So I think this level of caution is wise. And once the restrictions are relaxed even more, we have indoor mixing. As predicted by several experts already, you may well see a summer surge of the virus, but hopefully not as high as Chile.
Now, people around the world were holding on to the hope that if their country is fully vaccinated, they'll be able to return to life as normal. Are you saying that hope is a false one?
To some extent, no vaccine is 100% effective in preventing infection or transmission. And of course, the variants keep rising. And of course, there are those people who may not respond to the vaccine or refuse the vaccine, or the vaccine antibodies may wane over time. And as the antibodies drop, the protection may drop, and you might see some breakthrough infections. And this has been reported in Israel as well against the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine that's being used there. So really, it's the viral load exposure compared to the amount of antibody protection and other B and T cell protections you have that may decrease over time, and where these new variants may actually have some capability of bypassing the vaccine protectiveness induced by those vaccines.
Julian Tang and Jonathan Franklin, thank you both for that. Much appreciated. Well, thanks for watching our program. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and even subscribe.